View from the Gutters presents Back Matter. Welcome to Back Matter, the show where we discuss the wider world of comics and have conversations we don't normally have room for on our ordinary show. On this episode of Back Matter, we discuss some forthcoming events from Marvel and DC. Number Munchers,
we have
Oregon Trail,
plenty of years to
King's
get
Quest
there.
3,
I'm going to go
King's Quest
sleep
4,
for about 10
Space Quest
years
2.
until you get to games that are relevant, and then maybe I'll start listening, because it's probably in those ones. That's a hint for everyone at home. It's kind of modern.
It's kind of modern, which means...
Which you can kind of fucking tell from the sound quality of the thing when it's not like 8-bit Mega Man sounds that are like...
Wait a
Like,
minute.
what was that? What is that a sound of?
The sound effect we're talking about is Green Elf is about to die.
No, it's not.
Right?
It's not that.
Blue Warrior needs health badly.
We're off to a great fucking start. I'm Andrew Chard.
I am Joe Preti,
and I'm Tobiah Panshin.
and we are talking about stuff here on...
Stuff and things.
We have never done a Back Matter, the three of us, before.
We've
No, we
not.
haven't. And
No.
we have never done a Back Matter where we just kind of sit down and jaw-jack about what's actually happening in comic books
Yeah.
Well,
right now.
yeah, Joe and
Oh.
I did that on the first episode. That was kind of what the show... That was my original idea for the show. However, we're nowhere near organized enough or have enough free time to actually do like a weekly news discussion show.
Yeah, so...
So it's kind of evolved into other stuff, but give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, because I want to do more stuff like this at some point. So
I definitely agree. And
Yeah.
I wanted to use this show to talk about things when I had a bee in my bonnet, like when the whole thing went down with Brian Wood and Tess Fowler.
Yeah,
And I was like, we should totally talk about this. And we're like, yeah, but we should get this person on.
right.
And then that didn't happen.
Right.
And it didn't happen. And it didn't fucking happen. And then it's like, man, nobody cares about that. That was
Right.
4 months ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
That is
And,
old news. There's so much worse shit that has happened.
Oh my
since then.
god.
I think what we ended up
I'm going to make a promise, and we're not going to talk about Gamergate right now, but
No,
I
no.
am really upset about it
This
at
is
the
a
time.
Gamergate safe space,
Uh.
pretty much. We're not going to talk about
Thank
this.
Goodness.
God,
God, it makes me so mad, though.
It does,
It
it
just
does.
infuriates
And
me to
it's,
no end. But let's not talk about it. So.
I think... Well, I mean, I think the beginning of the end of it is that they're...
Let's see, the
the
fundamental
issues-
mistake that you're making right now is you're talking about
Well,
it.
no, I'm not going to talk about it specifically. The issues brought up are issues that are prevalent in geek society. This is
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just...
This is an
This
omniversal
is not
issue.
just a problem that gamership owns. This is a
No,
problem
God, no.
that geekdom owns, and so yeah.
But the reason that we're here is to talk about a much different,
a much more
equally
serious
infuriating issue in comic books specifically.
Yeah.
superheroes.
Yeah, superhero comics, everyone's favorite.
They're all awful. Nobody likes them. They should stop publishing
They're
them.
misogynistic.
You know, it's funny is Joe, like, he texted me and was like, do you want to record this tonight? Do you want to record about the new Marvel news? And I went online expecting to find, like, news.
Some Marvel news.
And there wasn't any. And then they got here and I was like, what the fuck are you guys talking about that we're going to talk about? And they, like, started talking. And I was like, oh, yeah, I read that. I didn't realize that was, like,
A thing.
news or that anyone would get upset about that at all.
Well,
Or care, because it's fucking superhero comics. Are we really surprised anymore?
Some
and
people take superhero
Yeah.
comics seriously,
And that some
still
people-
believe the hype for some inexplicable
And that
reason.
some people is Joe. So, Joe, what?
No, I mean, so I'm going to be brutally fucking honest here. I have been really good about lining up guests for Back Matter. and it's
that's true. You
been
have.
it's tricky
Yeah.
because it's hard to find topics, and Back Matter
Mm-hmm.
is pretty much our place for where we can throw up stuff that we don't get to talk about on the main show. And I've
Yeah.
been trying to use that as an avenue to talk to people that wouldn't normally get on the
Oh,
main
yeah.
show, people that aren't necessarily into comics but have experience and opinions on things that are kind of important in comics. And I think it's kind of a refreshing thing. But like,
and I mean, even people who read comics are not always like excited to be on a show about comic book podcasts,
Yeah.
especially at the level that we are like how does this book make you feel? Like
Yeah.
the book club of comic books. Like I don't know that some people are really interested in being
there's
a
some
part of
people
that. So
who don't want to be a part of a book club of any kind.
Right.
It's like, I don't want other people telling me what to think.
Yeah,
about
exactly,
things and
right?
stuff.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely. And so,
yeah.
this week I was at a loss. Like I have a bunch of shows planned in the future. I've got a show planned where we're gonna get my brother on, and
I'm excited for that one.
That's gonna be great. We're gonna talk about something very special. And
you
then,
can tease it if you
well,
want.
we're gonna talk about a very special comic from the early days of Image.
Yeah.
Bloodmaster Scarlet.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Nope.
It's.
I wish it was that cool.
I've got a discussion about tropes coming up in the works, but like this week was kind of a dead zone. Like I didn't have anything, and I mean, I kind of had one thing, but then and so this news kind of broke, and I thought it was interesting because I think that it's pretty much Marvel at New York Comic Con. Marvel announced a huge event leading up, culminating in May of 2015, which coincides with the release of Avengers 2, doesn't it? Or it's going to be...
It's aroundish that time.
Generally, it's been the first week in May, has been their like big spring movie event.
Right.
I know this because my birthday is that week, and
for the last few years.
for like every year for the last decade, I've gotten a Marvel movie on my birthday.
Yeah,
Yay.
Which is awesome.
It is.
I'm
it
using
is
that
very...
sound effect again. Check it out.
So, this event it's called Time Runs Out, and it's going to culminate in May, and then lead into Secret Wars.
Yeah, the slightly longer version of that is if you've been reading Avengers and New Avengers and Marvel in general, you know that since like Marvel Now happened, since the end of Age of Ultron, time has been broken.
Yeah.
And things have been getting worse and worse. And shit has been crazy up in Avengers and New Avengers with these incursion events where realities are crashing into each other and being destroyed, and the heat death of the universe is actually getting closer and closer and closer. And Avengers and New Avengers just skipped 8 months into the future, which is to say May 2015, and the rest of the Marvel Universe is slowly catching up to them month by month. So that when we get to 2015, to 8 months later, time is going to run out. And at that moment, Marvel is going to launch a new event, which is going to be called Secret Wars. And the promo that they released for this is a view out in space with the Earth blowing up in the background.
Well, it's a planet blowing up.
And all of these Marvel superheroes from different times, from different realities, all fighting one another.
Yeah.
Coming on the heels of that announcement, they've been announcing a crap ton more events and releasing like teaser poster images.
Yeah.
Of all the events basically that they've ever done. Like
their twists on them though, because like instead of Days of Future Past, it's Years of Future Past.
Right.
And then there's Planet Hulk, and it's like a different...
Yeah, it's like Captain America and Devil Dinosaur fighting Hulks.
Right.
And they announced like Civil War, but the poster looks different than the Civil War that happened.
Yeah.
So it's obvious that Marvel is up to something funky with time and reality.
And I guess the one thing that I see from all of this that like... I mean, it may not be initially apparent, though, is if you listen way back on our show to, like, episodes 5 and 6, one of some of the early episodes that Joe's on, one of the things that we're talking about on those episodes is the relaunch of DC with the New 52.
Yeah.
And it was a very similar atmosphere to right now because you had this big event that had been launched called Flashpoint, and they were doing all of these like alternate universe takes on all their big characters and big storylines. And you have like a world in which Batman doesn't become Batman because it's not his parents, Thomas Wayne and Martha, that are killed. It's Bruce is killed. And so Thomas becomes Batman and Martha becomes the Joker. And you have like this is a Flash story where it's the Rogue story, and I can't remember what it was, but I think it was the one where Captain Cold was like the hero and not the Flash.
Yeah, he was Commander
Yeah,
Cold.
that's what it was. And they were doing all these like alternate universe stories, which actually I really enjoyed because I love. You guys know how much I love like alternate universe and what if stories. Like I fucking love that shit. So Joe's theory, and several people online's theory,
understandably,
whom are all wrong, think that this is the reboot of the Marvel Universe.
Well, I don't necessarily. I mean, that seems to be the opinion online. I don't have an opinion either way about what they're going to do. I am content to sit back and watch.
Yeah.
However, I have feelings about things, which is why I'm on a podcast. And my feelings about this is that Marvel's been doing a lot more good than bad recently.
Yeah.
I think they've been diversifying their universe. I mean, slowly but surely. But, like we have a female Thor, Falcon is Captain America. They gave Black Widow and She-Hulk. It starts with Captain Marvel becoming...
soon going to have an abundance of female spider characters.
Yeah.
Well, no, because...
Well, there's going to be Spider-Woman.
Right.
And Silk.
Right.
And Spider-Gwen.
Right, but the Spider-Woman isn't getting her own book as far as I know.
I think that she is.
And Black Widow's is canceled.
Black Widow's is
canceled. Black Widow's is canceled, yes.
Although not necessarily a spider character, but we are getting Silk and Spider-Gwen.
I'm pretty sure Spider-Woman is also getting her own book.
That's interesting. I did not know that.
They're taking steps. I mean,
Yes.
I've read online, there are a lot of people out there like, they say things like, diversity is good, but diversity for diversity's sake is stupid. And I'm like, you could not sound any more like a white male. Like, seriously, come on.
Yeah,
diversity is a good thing because representation is a good thing.
Representation
I feel very
is
triggered
important.
right now, Joe.
Are you very triggered?
I'm very triggered.
Good. Because, as white men, we have the least amount of power in this entire country. I don't, everybody should feel sorry for us because we are oppressed by women and minorities and gays and lesbians. And
okay, even said sarcastically, I don't fucking want that going out on our show.
I'm going to take that quote out of context for you and put it in just every episode. It's in every episode now.
Right under the episode
it's like preview. It's just a preview for the next episode. It's going to be that clip.
We'll just exert that and put it under your host bio.
Yeah.
You should do that. Can you put me in
I'll
Photoshop in a fedora.
Okay. Good,
yeah.
Good deal.
And
good
some My Little Ponies. Obviously, we think this is all bullshit. And the thing that you should know if you've listened to the show at all before, if this is your first episode, why the fuck are you listening to this?
It's a weird place to start.
However, welcome. And also, if you know anything about us, you know that we don't give a shit about feeling like our characters have been killed or taken away. It's not like, oh man, you replaced all these great white male characters with diversity. We feel affronted by that.
Yeah,
it's like we're excited to see shit change because if you've been reading comic books as long as we have, I'm gonna be honest, I'm getting a little fucking tired of Steve Rogers.
Oh no, God,
not
absolutely.
even a little tired. I care zero about Steve Rogers.
Honestly, I think the change with Steve Rogers is as refreshing as what we got with Spider-Ock.
Yeah,
he's an old man now. He's leading the Avengers from the back. He's the guy who knows tactics and shit. He's Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond.
He's
and
Nick
which I think
Fury
is an
now.
awesome new role. For him.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, he was halfway there when he was the Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. What was that series when he was
Super Soldier?
Yeah, and he was commanding in the heroic age when he was kind of commanding the Avengers. He was halfway there. This is him becoming Nick Fury in a lot of ways.
I think a better Nick Fury.
Agreed, and I think that that's fucking awesome. That's legacy for two different reasons. You have Nick Fury's gone, and you have Cap taking over that kind of role, and then you have the Falcon taking over as Captain America.
And then
so
you
there's
have Bucky
double
doing
legacy.
that whole man on the wall thing that came out of Original Sin,
and that is
which I'm not 100% a fan of.
No,
we'll
the
see
art
what
in that
happens
book
with it.
is fucking amazing. But
I didn't so much care for it, but that's a personal problem.
But it's phenomenally done. But the story, I'm not sure. Actually, if you want to listen to it, we talked about it on Top of the Stack, Eric Mason and I. We had a similar reaction, which is basically something that we love about books is when you tell a book about a character, and if you replace that character with any other character, the book wouldn't work. Danny Rand's Iron Fist in the Immortal Iron Fist, the new series. That is clearly a Danny Rand story because if you take anyone out, half of that story doesn't apply anymore because it's about him and his family and his fortune.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? But the Bucky story, the Bucky in space, that could be anyone. That literally could be Punisher. There's no reason that has to be Bucky versus any other character, and I feel like that's the biggest downfall of that book.
Well, I feel like Bucky was such a huge deal in the Winter Soldier arc in Captain America that they've been trying to find a role for him ever since, and nothing's quite worked.
If you read the Winter Soldier book, which was the flashback book to the 60s, in which he's like fighting S.H.I.E.L.D. agents in the 60s and Hydra agents, like that book was fucking amazing.
I have not, but now
that
I
was
want
the
to.
Remender one. It was just called Winter Soldier. Yeah, it's great. It came out like less than a year ago, which is weird that they're now doing this new Winter Soldier. Anything, that's a total aside. But we love legacy characters. We're always excited by them. I mean, Joe and I are huge fans of Wally West. I mean, yeah, that's a white guy replacing a white guy, but like, you know, that was what we grew up with. We grew up with legacy characters because we were reading comics in the modern age of comics. So we came into comics understanding that shit changed. Like there was this guy named Barry Allen and he was dead. And now this was the new guy. And
his death had a
marked influence on Wally West.
It did.
Like, they brought it up.
It absolutely did. And even with like Kyle Rayner, who was another white guy replacing a white guy, but
and later you have John Stewart.
Well, John Stewart in Kyle Rayner's arc is a hugely influential person because
absolutely.
He's done the Green Lantern thing. He's been there, and he provides guidance in a lot of ways. And then later on, he becomes a much bigger part of Kyle Rayner's world, you know. And it's like, but the thing is there's growth there. Mm-hmm. It's not just a sign that time has passed. It's a sign that like, this is an evolving world. This is not a static world. And so when we're talking about DC, you know, I'm DC in the New 52, you know, the stills that have been released, we had costumes for the JLA that Jim Lee had done that looked like they were from 1994. You had Superman wearing like work boots and rolled up jeans and like a half cape. And I scream half on my first episode.
Yeah,
I think
you're just very upset about the half cape.
The half cape. It's just it was such a bad character design.
It was.
And
it was pretty much
but
awful.
Still, like, I was willing to give it a chance, and I read.
Oh God, I mean, how many New 52?
Yeah, like I read a good deal of them, and some of them were great. Like there was Demon Knights, which I thought was great. It was a really cool concept until they kicked Dwayne. What's it? Swerzynski? I think it's Swerzynski. I think there's a Z in there.
Right. Sure.
But until they got rid of him.
Yeah.
Scott Snyder's first 12 or so issues of Batman is solid. I really liked the Birds of Prey. I thought it was a novel idea. They got Ivy out of the fucking ridiculous goddamn like leafy unitard and into like she wore this black bodysuit, and when she went into battle she grew bark over it, which makes complete fucking sense.
Yeah.
Because bark is the armor of a tree. Why would I saw that and I was like, yes. And like what's her face? Black Canary wasn't wearing fishnets and a fucking skimpy little thing. She was dressed in like fucking sparring armor.
Mm-hmm.
Like there was some good shit. I think Wonder Woman, I think that may be one of the best modern Wonder Woman runs ever. She felt grounded in her mythology, and she felt like a character. But there was also a lot of bullshit.
Yeah.
There was Dark Knight, which was fucking awful. Harking back to like
you had Superman.
Yeah, Superman,
which was written by
you had
the
Grant
artist.
Morrison
no,
writing,
that was Action Comics.
Yeah.
Superman was written by
George
Perez,
and
it was basically the worst thing I've ever read.
Well, the thing is that George Perez came out and said, I am trying to write storylines that coincide with what Grant Morrison is doing on Action Comics, and he won't fucking tell me what he's doing.
Yeah.
So like there is no way that we can have continuity with each other. And he lasted less than a year on that book.
He made it until issue 13 when it's like a crossover with Supergirl or something. And
so just about a year. And like over time, it just became, it was more and more apparent that what DC had done was they had cherry picked their continuity, kept what they liked, gotten rid of the rest, but replaced it with very little.
Well, the thing is that they went in and they did a slash and burn.
Yes.
They were cutting down all the old growth.
Mm-hmm.
So that they were like, hey, we can tell new stories with these characters.
Right.
But they like cherry picked to keep random ass things, and it turned into a
wasn't, to be honest, it was not. we make it sound like they had a plan.
Yeah, and that's exactly
I think
what I
that's
was
the
building
largest fallacy of anyone is like, well, why would DC make a plan that's this shitty? And basically, they didn't make. They
didn't have a plan.
Because I talked at Comic-Con this year, and I don't remember if I talked about this on the Comic-Con episode because I try not to talk about what artists and writers tell me when I ask them questions on the show because I feel like they're just talking to me like I'm a fan and I'm not interviewing them, obviously.
Right.
So I spoke to a writer at DC who I really like and whose work I really liked in the pre-New 52. And they were given a book on the New 52, and I asked them what it was like to get an initial run on the New 52, like what it was like to start over with a brand new character. And their first response was, I wish they had told me anything about the universe they were building, because I would have made massively different decisions about how I told that story.
Oh, yeah.
How old the characters were that I put into the story. Why they were doing the things they were doing. I would have changed so much. And I was like, you didn't get like a universe story Bible. You didn't get like a massive outline of what things were. And he said, if one existed, I never saw it. And this is someone who was writing, like, it wasn't a huge book, but it was a book that was, like, should have been fine.
Well, it should have been any book.
It had, and it had good names on it. It had an artist that is maybe laughable now, but at some point in time, like, was a big deal. And so, like, it had potential. And the fact that no one at DC went through the fucking trouble to like make sure that the writer and artist were well prepared to enter a brand new fucking universe. Unlike 25 or 20 years earlier, it was like 25, 30 years earlier?
It was
with
86 to 2011.
Yeah.
So 30... No.
25 years.
25 years, right? Okay.
25 years.
So at Crisis on Infinite Earths, they had this big outline for like all the shit they were going to try to do in the new universe. Like part of it was like depowering and rehumanizing Superman and like making Wonder Woman more powerful and taking away all of her ridiculous shit like the Invisible Jet. And like they had all these plans, like pare down the Bat family, pare down the Superman family. They had all of this going into it.
Poor Streaky the Super Cat.
Yeah, and the horse.
Poor Bippo the Super Monkey.
Comet, thank you. No one can remember that the other day.
I looked it up the last time.
And so they got rid of all this shit. They got rid of the Legion. They got rid of Mixes Pitalic. They would bring this shit back later, but like Grant Morrison would bring stuff back in early.
You take as much out as you possibly can, and then you add it back in more slowly and with intention.
Right. Well, and so there were people at the time that were upset, though, because like some of their favorite shit went away.
Right.
But DC went about it with a specific plan, and like again, in the modern era, like post-crisis, it had a lot of growing to do as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's tough to judge this right off the bat as like, man, the New 52 should have been a fully formed universe. But to be honest with you, it kind of fucking should have been.
No,
because if you're going to have all of these writers and editors and producers and, editor-in-chief and line editors, all of these people together, and they cannot come up with a cohesive plan, like, you have a much bigger problem in your universe than let's just reboot.
Absolutely.
There's a word that Toby just used, intent.
Yeah.
And I think there was an intent during Crisis on Infinite Earths to do some spring cleaning, get rid of a lot of the old stuff, and build towards a new universe where you could do the things. They had goals in mind.
Right.
Looking back, almost 4 years after the fact, well, 3 years.
Almost exactly 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years and a month.
It was clear that DC's only intent with rebooting the universe was to build hype and try and sell as many comic books they could to whoever would want them. And as time went by, it became clear that their target market was a demographic that is not, shall we say, for the growth of comic books as an industry.
And I think that this is really interesting, though, because it could have been.
They
had ads on Cartoon Network. They had ads in magazines. They had big-ass billboards being like, the new DC is coming.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they had all of this shit planned out because, as I've always said, they were going after a market that everyone in comics should be targeting, which is basically like
kids.
No, they were not targeting kids. 100% they were not targeting kids. Who they were targeting are people that aren't reading comics.
Comic books, yes.
And the thing is, like, that's always the marketing goal, right? Is not to double tap the consumers you already have, but to double the amount of consumers you have.
That should be the goal, but that's obviously not DC's the goal. And,
well, it was,
like
though.
A year or two ago, they released market surveys that they put out that basically showed that that's exactly who they were targeting. White, male, middle-aged comic book readers.
Yeah.
That if you look at the total comics audience as a pie, they wanted the largest piece of the largest piece.
Yeah.
We're not going to dilute, quote unquote, our brand by trying to get, women and minorities and people of all different kinds.
Right.
But we're going to target specifically this one large segment, and we're going to try and get all of their money.
But their marketing did not reflect that.
No, and I agree.
And Warner Brothers as a company, I think what they wanted was for more people out there to be reading comics. I think
agree.
that's literally the reason that Dan DiDio should have been fired the minute that they went into a conference with the editors at DC. Is they're like, hey, let's get everybody in the world reading comics. And Dan DiDio says, no, I just want these people to read comics. You should be fired. Like, legitimately, you should be fired for that. Because it's basically saying, like, I don't want my product to succeed.
Well, let me say that I do not have a high opinion of Dan DiDio.
Well, and it just, like, the insanity the insanity of, like, that thought process. Now, the reason I bring up the New 52, because I realize we've gotten off topic slightly,
we're building towards something.
Because Toby said intent, and I was talking about how you need to go into shit with a plan, and if there's anything in the world that Marvel is good at doing, it's getting every single writer that's writing for them, every single editor, every single line editor, and getting their ideas together and moving forward. That's what they've been doing with the Marvel like ideas summits and like all this kind of shit.
The writers summits.
Yeah, exactly.
Which unfortunately certain writers weren't invited to or haven't been.
And there's politics involved in every field, but
yes, absolutely the difference between what DC did 3 years ago and what Marvel is doing now. Whether or not they're building towards a reboot of any kind.
They're not. I promise you they're not.
That Marvel is operating with forethought and intention.
Yeah.
They're having these writers' summits. They're making plans, obviously, years ahead. They're getting everybody on the same page. Like, they're obviously building up to something specific that they've had planned out for at least the last 2 years. Probably at least the last 3 years.
Yeah.
Because all of this has been building up since Hickman launched Avengers, at the very least, and that's on issue 36 at this point.
Yeah.
So they've had this plan in place for years.
Yeah.
And they are just now finally coming to its culmination.
Whether or not Marvel is building towards a reboot, I think is less important to me than the fact that when you look at what Marvel is doing, when DC said, we're going to reboot everything, and we are going to reboot everything to bring comics to people who are afraid to jump on at Batman at 700.
Right.
Afraid to jump onto Action Comics at almost 800, right?
And
we're
which
going to
makes
bring
sense.
it to a new audience. And then they wrote the same kinds, mostly by and large, wrote the same kinds of stories they'd been writing for the last...
Well, and even if you look at Green Lantern, like, specifically not a new number, but number whatever just came out +1.
Yeah.
Like, shit, nothing happened.
Yeah. And so when you look at Marvel over the past several years, you see them doing what a comic book company that wants to grow should do. Letting competent writers take characters in directions they want, letting people give fresh new takes to older characters.
Letting people experiment
and do cool things with the characters that they want to do it with.
Well, and targeting specific fan bases that is not pandering, but in fact, everyone in that specific fan base going, I want more of character X.
Well, absolutely.
And then Marvel going, okay, here you go.
I was talking to my brother Adam just recently about the new Batgirl relaunch and how weird it felt. Because it looks and sounds so incredibly different from literally everything else that DC is doing.
Oh, it reminds me of a Marvel thing. I look at her and I'm like, she looks like a Marvel character.
And it's like, when you look at Marvel, like, no two books look exactly the same. If you look at Ms. Marvel, Rocket Raccoon, Iron Fist, Ghost Rider, and Avengers, every single one of those books feels different.
Vastly different.
Vastly different. And Marvel was able to get away with that because they're willing to be so inclusive in terms of the number of different artistic styles that they embrace.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this is something that's really working for Marvel right now, and DC is like, oh, we want to get a piece of that.
Yeah.
We're going to put out this one book that feels like a Marvel book.
Well, it's not just that one book, though, because you look at Gotham Academy, and it looks nothing like other Batman books. The Batman line editor, who's now in charge, recently took over, well, I would say like 3 to 6 months ago, and that's when we started to see this shit roll out, like Gotham Academy and Batgirl. And
if that's true, I haven't been paying super close attention. That would be awesome.
That's a person's name we should know. But it's exactly what Toby's saying. Like, for so long, the New 52 was clenched down under this house style of art and house style of writing, and you felt like no two books, you didn't have variety. Right. You couldn't be like, well, I don't really like Red Hood and the Outlaws, but at least I've got this Batgirl book I enjoy, because they all just felt like trash garbage.
It was one note.
They all just felt like trash garbage.
Like, it doesn't matter how good they are,
yeah,
because they were all the same thing.
I totally agree.
When you look at the books Marvel has been putting out, Marvel is writing reader-friendly comic books. They're writing comic books that allow readers to make informed decisions about what they want. They're writing books that are friendly towards people that are new to the genre and want to get in. When you look at what DC is writing,
some of them are like as dense.
Well, yeah,
that's
some
the
of them
thing.
you can't just jump right into.
You have
Avengers.
all the flavors. Like, if you're a long-term reader, if you love the buildup of continuity, read Hickman's Avengers.
Exactly.
If you have never read a fucking comic book before, pick up like maybe Rocket Raccoon or Captain Marvel.
Exactly.
Well, and the thing is that 36 is not an intimidating number. You go into a comic store and you're like, oh, this is only on 36. I could totally start at the beginning of that and check that out. So,
to be fair, though, one of our biggest criticisms of Marvel has, because I don't want to just run the let's kiss Marvel's asshole show, because one of the biggest problems they've fucking had is they'll put out a new number one and it's not actually a number one.
This is my problem.
I had a problem with them that they were doing that for a little while. They seem to have stopped.
Except that we have 5 books coming out in the next few months that are all going to have all new number ones.
Yes, but I feel like Marvel is shifting to a style where every time there's like a story break or a stylistic break, they're like, okay, new jumping on point, new number one.
Yeah, but what
like
happened
with Daredevil, like it went to a new number one because it was a new chapter in his life.
But
I would much prefer if they did something like add a fucking subtitle in there. Like, we've reached this chapter. This is the last chapter in this story. This story is done. New fucking novel, chapter 1.
Right. And again, though, like
they're halfway
no
there.
one picks up the second novel in a series of, well, I guess I should not say no one, because there are a lot of books that are written in a serialized manner in which it doesn't really matter what order you read them in. Right. But I don't feel like comic books is that way anymore.
No, I think it depends a little bit. But the way that I think of it is like, oh, you should read James Bond book number 7 first, because that's a really good one. And it'll get you into the character.
It's actually funny because 6 is the one that I started with.
Okay, sure, 6. I haven't read James Bond. I'm just
6 is Dr. No, which is the first movie, so I just assumed it was the first book.
And I wish that Marvel would go to a thing where they really did label their series like, this is Daredevil, whatever, book 7 in the serialized adventures of Daredevil. And when that ends, you go on to book 8, subtitle whatever that's on the marquee banner of the comic book.
We already had Batman whatever.
And so you could go to a new reader and be like, okay, check out Daredevil volume 6 or whatever.
Right.
That starts here, and that'll give you an introduction to the character.
And I think that, like, if comic book companies were really about, doing that kind of thing, things that they could do to make that easier is change it instead of using like, book or volume, they could use stuff like season. Like, hey, season 1, season 2, season 3. Like, season 1 and 2 are just get through those really quick, because season 3 is where it gets really good. How many times have you heard that about TV shows, right? Like, that's language that people use.
Yep,
and also, you change the spine every time you change a season number of the book. So you're like, oh, there's 5 trades in season 1 and then 7 trades in season 2. And because, again, when they're color-coded like that and they all say season 1 at the bottom, season 1 volume 1 or season 1 number 1, like, it's a lot easier for people to follow along, because it's already confusing enough when you're like, okay, so there's 6 issues, but then those 6 issues are in volume 1, so then you need to get issue 7 if you're reading volume 2, and then if you got the hardcovers, 1 and 2 collect the first 10 issues, so that's volumes 1 and 2, and like, all this number combining gets confusing to new fans. But if so many people are just reading them in trades only, that's another part of the equation, I think, is like, fuck single issues, just go to trades only, because no one fucking gets confused when they pick up volume 2 instead of volume 1 and they go, oh, this isn't the begin.
Preach it, brother.
I hate trade paper. I don't hate trade paperbacks. I love trade paperbacks. I fucking hate single issues. And everyone out there that's still buying them, it bothers me.
I mean,
I get it. You want to support your creators. I got that.
The fact that they produce single issues, it's like, okay, fine. People want to buy them. That's cool. I'm not going to.
To me, it's like records.
But if Marvel decided, like, we're going to put out a new issue number 1 of all of our books every single year, that's great. When you put it together in the trade, it's volume X, whatever number. Like, hey, that's perfectly cool. Just label the shit correctly so that people know what they're getting.
And it's really
like it's not the number 1 in and of itself. It's a problem,
right?
And that's it's. I agree with that, but because of the way it's presented, it feels like books get a sales bump with a new number 1.
They do.
That's a thing.
They totally do.
And you know why they do, though? You know why they get a new bump when a new number 1?
Well,
yeah, because everyone's a fucking uninformed consumer, and it drives me crazy.
And this is what I want to dive into. I remember all too well the collector's markets of the 90s, which almost led to I mean, Marvel was bankrupt in the 90s, you know? Like, this was a bad fucking time to be a comic book collector because everything was going crazy. And the thing is that I remember that all too well. And when I see new number 1, I see, because I'm sorry, like, to me, speculators in comic books, it's very difficult.
Speculators are always bad.
Yes. And the fact,
and I get where you're coming from.
If you bought Captain America,
well, hold on, I'm not done yet.
Okay. No, I'm outside. If you bought Captain America 25 for more than retail price on the day that it came out, you got played. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and that's the thing, is that
because it's worth nothing now.
I have conversations with people constantly where I'll talk about comic books and they'll be like, "Oh, I have a Spawn number blah 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 here," and I'm like, "Yeah, it's not worth anything." Yeah. And they're like, "But no, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not worth anything." Like, unless you have like, "Well, I have this. My dad gave me a bunch of his old comics from the '60s." I'm like, unless you have one of a very small number of comic books in which something important happened, it's probably not going to be worth too much, because the way what determines wealth is rarity and desire. And when you have a comic book that has a huge run, it doesn't matter what number it is. It doesn't matter what happens in it. If there's no scarcity, then there's no fucking value.
Yeah,
period.
You can still find X-Force number 1 for like a quarter.
Artificial scarcity is the worst fucking thing ever. And it happens. It fucking happens.
Oh, yeah. Well, Disney, that's what the whole variant cover thing is.
Disney does it all the time, too, with their
It's
DVDs.
Artificial scarcity.
Because they lock the vault
every
few years.
And it works. Like, to some extent, that marketing idea works, right? But when you're competing against a modern digital age, it stops working because there aren't, like, rare VHS tapes.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, only because, like, there were, like, 8 ever made, and, like, someone out there is a collector of VHS tapes, but the demand for that one rare VHS tape is not as high.
In this day and age, VHS tapes in and of themselves have value because they don't make them anymore.
Right.
And there's still people who want them for various, like, legacy systems.
Yeah.
So if you have, like, Driving Miss Daisy, like, they made 50 million of them on VHS. It's like, I want that VHS tape. I don't care what's on it. I'm going to record over it.
Right. And
which is interesting.
To some extent, like, that is an interesting side of it, because you cannot reuse a comic book, like, for anything except to, like, mulch it up and then make new paper out of it. But
that's what I did with mine.
And that's honestly what we should do with lots of shit.
Random fact.
Well, that's how recycled paper is made.
Well, no, like in the Middle Ages, they wrote on vellum, which was like leather.
Oh, and then they scraped it off.
They would scrape the ink off and write on it again.
Yeah.
And they've actually been able to go back and, like, find what was originally on there and like get more documents that we didn't have copies of.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Historical fact.
Yeah, that is a reusable writing material from the past. However,
they should print comics on vellum.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's make them
there
more
are definitely some
fucking
comics
expensive.
that deserve to be scraped off.
The point being, in a digital age, things become less rare because mass producing copies of them is inexpensive to the point of free.
Yep.
Like you just push copy on your computer and like, oh, now I have another digital copy of a thing. Like that, like in a weird way that doesn't compute in my head because it's like you can't just copy actual physical things like that. And so like I forget that doesn't
download
work.
A car.
Yeah, exactly. I would absolutely download a car.
Well, with 3D printers, that ad is going to become a little bit more interesting in the next few years.
Could you download a car?
Here's the thing, though, and we get into this a little bit in the interview that I did with Patrick a couple of back matters ago. If Marvel and DC exploded and vanished from this earth tomorrow, the comics industry would still be here.
Absolutely.
And there are a lot of great people making a lot of great comics completely outside of the Diamond distribution system.
Oh, yeah.
Who are doing things online.
Yeah.
Who are, doing web comics. They're doing Kickstarter
comics. They're
doing print on demand.
Absolutely.
Like, comic books as a thing are not going to go away. They are in no danger.
No.
Which is
to be honest, like
I think that's something that's important to remember when we talk kind of in this overwrought way, like, oh, they're killing comics.
Well,
they're not.
They're killing themselves.
They're killing themselves.
It's the same way that people are like, we're destroying our planet. And it's like, not really. The planet's going to be fine. We'll all be dead, but the planet will still be a rock in space.
The thing to me is that I definitely... I think that's what's interesting about today's modern comic age is that back in the 90s, if you didn't read Marvel and you didn't read DC... There was Image going around there, but they had like 6 books or something.
Well, yeah, mid-90s.
That was pretty much it. You had Dark Horse had a presence, and there was a lot of underground stuff.
Of little
but
yes.
I mean,
like
most
Mirage.
of your average, brick and mortar stores, you couldn't go in and buy Oni comics. You had to go to like.
Well, also remember that those brick and mortar stores were like. Still new.
Oh, they
a lot
were
of
new
them in the 90s or recently began carrying comics in the 90s because we think about comic book stores now and we're like, yes, comic book stores, this great national institution from the beginning of America. No, like they started in the 70s as like stores of collectors who had a lot of fucking back issues and action figures, and we're like, well, I guess I should start a store for this.
You didn't know that Benjamin Franklin ran a comic book store?
Yeah, he ran the ye old comics. God, I can't believe we fucking made the same joke. I'm so disappointed in myself. I've never been more disappointed in myself in my life.
And it's on now. It's going to be on the internet.
Edited. I'm editing it out. Well, yeah, you know what I mean. Like, no, comic book stores have not been around since. Like, really, before the 80s, they were, like, such a scarcity. And a lot of times they were, like, collector shops. Like, they sold coins and baseballs and also these weird things called comic books. Because the demand for comics, of old comics in those days, was still kind of the same way there was when I was a kid, which I remember the demand for comics being so high for back issues. I remember being like, fuck, I gotta get my hands on a SpiderMan 252 to see what this black suit shit's all about. And the reason I wanted to buy it was not because it was worth anything, but because I wanted to read it.
Well, no,
there was literally no other way for me to read it.
I remember tracking down a copy of Avengers Annual, I think it was 16. It's the first appearance of Rogue. And I remember finding it and getting my hands on it and just being like, oh, I got to read this shit. I got to find out. Like,
I remember
in the late 90s, my brother, Adam, had our mom take him around to literally every comic book store in like a 20-mile radius, trying to track down issues of the New Mutants.
Yeah.
And he got, if not all of them, at least most of them, like the first 100 or so.
Yeah, and I remember buying that issue of Spider-Man on eBay, getting it, like, because it was a little bit later. It wasn't like super early 90s, but like, again, there was still no way really to get this shit. And so I bought it on eBay, and the minute it got to my house, I like cracked it open and read it because that's the reason I had bought it. And I think about that now, and it's like I could go find 252 online in like 4 seconds, even a legal copy.
Yeah.
In like 4 seconds.
I do want to say something because I know my readers are going to lambaste me if
your readers. You have readers?
Readers, because you listen to this with your
this
eyes,
is being
right?
transcribed.
Yeah. Well, I didn't realize you had your own
Why
readers.
else is the woman sitting in the corner writing shorthand?
I just like the sound of the
Everything we're saying.
click-clack of the keyboard.
We appreciate your hard work, Edna.
Yeah, thank you,
It's Avengers Annual number 10, not number 16.
Really? Everyone's going to get upset about that? All
right. Comic book fans.
Not our fans.
Yeah, not our not our fans.
I feel that we appeal to a very lazy demographic. Like, whatever.
I'm pretty sure that's not her first appearance, but I'll look it up later.
No, we get lots of fan corrections.
We do.
Like, honestly, we actually do, because we don't know what the fuck we're talking about. So many people will send us corrections. So
we know. But I think
it's basically like the opposite of Conan O'Brien when he's like, challenge the master and you have to find the mistakes.
Yeah.
It's like, can you find the right thing we said this week?
That's exactly it.
We've never...
When we say something and it turns out to be correct, we give ourselves all no prizes.
So, I think that really what it comes down to is if DC had thought about it, if DC had a plan other than sell more comic books,
well, that's a fair plan. They're a fucking business. It's a good plan.
But when it's the only, it's like...
No, that could be their only... See, this is the thing. This is the big debate. People are like... And this is kind of what we're talking about Marvel, right? This is the big debate. Is like the hype machine, man. All they're trying to do is sell comic books. I'm sorry. Did everyone fucking forget that's what they goddamn do?
That's
literally the name of their fucking business plan is, hey, what do you want to do today? I don't know. Let's fucking sell some more comic books. Great. No, I want them to sell more comics. I want them to put comics in the hands of fucking everyone. I just want the comics to be good that they are selling. That's it.
I absolutely agree with that. But I was just having an argument with somebody about this on Reddit who was complaining about, like, oh, Marvel's constantly hyping their shit. Like, they're telling you everything that's going to happen. Like, we knew that Captain America was going to become the Falcon like 3 months before it happened, and it ruined all the suspense.
Yeah.
No, man, it's fucking part of the game.
Yes.
And the thing that I equated it to, if anybody out there watches pro wrestling, there's this term in pro wrestling, kayfabe. It's the illusion that it's real.
Yeah.
And they know it's not real, and you know it's not real, and they know that you know that it's not real. But everybody fucking pretends it's real because it's all part of the show. And at this point, all the fucking, like, crazy hype that Marvel and DC put out, like the over-the-top announcements, like, oh my god, Wolverine's gonna die and he's gonna be gone forever. Like, they know it's not true. You know it's not true. They know you know it's not true, but they're still going to say it because it's part of the show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Pretend that it's a big deal because that's part of the experience of superhero comics in the modern day.
And I think that you have to, like, the whole, like, okay, guys, we have to sell more. I mean, when you read about the fucking death of Superman, they were like, when people write about that, they're like, we were sitting in our weekly editors meeting, and they were like, what are we going to do? We need to sell more comics. Let's kill Superman. And he expected everybody to laugh. But for the first time, everybody, because it wasn't the first time they had said it.
Oh, they say it was their joke. To be like,
it was their
how
joke.
Do we sell a comic
and then everybody stopped and kind of looked and said, yeah, let's do that. So, yeah, I'm all about it. But there was a plan in place there. Regardless of how you feel about the Death and Return of Superman storyline, there was more than just, let's sell comics there.
Yeah.
Well, and I think...
We knew it wasn't for keeps when they killed Captain America. We knew it wasn't for keeps when they killed off Peter Parker and replaced him with Otto. And it's not going to be fucking permanent with Wolverine. He's going to be back.
Well, they already said that, but they said that the idea is to take him off the table for a few years so it doesn't feel like he's in every book.
Yep.
Which is smart.
It's a great
all about
idea.
that.
Oh, God,
Thank you. Because how long have we fucking complained that Wolverine's in like 800 places at once?
Like you were saying earlier, like if you change that character, what changes about the story? Fucking everything.
Right.
What happens when you take Wolverine out of the Marvel Universe?
Right.
How much does it change?
Yeah.
Who does it change?
Yeah.
How does that go down? Experience that for a while. Have fun with it. Then bring him back.
Those
See
are
what
all
changes
interesting.
then.
Yeah, those are all really interesting ideas because I guarantee you the fucking Marvel Universe that he comes back to will not be the same Marvel Universe that he left.
And, sometimes you kill off a character or you make a change and you're like, holy shit, this is better.
Think about a New 52 in which their Batman title, you don't see who he is. You just see him wearing the cape and the cowl. He's running around. And then 8 issues in, you find out that this is some guy that Bruce Wayne has tapped to be Batman. And he's like he's in a fight. He's like downloaded himself into the goddamn Batputer. And he's fucking like something like that.
No, how awesome would it be?
Like,
how awesome would it be if you had 4 different Batman books and Batman's doing all these different things? And you're like, how is this all happening at once?
Because there's 4
and
Batmans.
Then, 8 months in, you find out there's 4 different people who are Batman.
Or
and
this
Bruce
one's
Wayne
on
is
fucking
in a bunker
Yeah.
somewhere,
Or this-
fucking
yeah.
directing Batman Inc., and nobody knows
Or
anything
this
about
was
it.
on
Earth
Earth
7,
too,
and-
and there's like, why not? You have
There
a
we go.
fucking multiverse. That was a
yeah,
weird voice.
there's so many
sound,
different
by the
ways
way.
That's a little
do it.
weird.
I want to mention that
But-
was weird for me as well.
What, the voice crack?
Yeah, apparently I'm going through puberty today. But I'm finally becoming a man, Mom. But the so as I continue to yell about comic books online, and
The internet has to know.
and I agree with all of that. And that was what was so fucking exciting about the New 52 was, all of the possibilities
Well, and
that they
that's
have to do something cool. And what they did was
not cool.
continue to tell the same shitty stories that they had told pre the New 52 reboot, and also tell stories that didn't feel like they were new or fresh.
Yeah.
Like nothing felt new before. And I'm excited for things like Batgirl and Gotham Academy and, basically anything that changes that status quo and is like, hey, this is actually something
Well,
new,
because that's
like
what-
really new.
That's what I have an idea that we are moving out of like a new era of superhero comics is about to be upon us. And I'm now that I've seen the redesign of Batgirl, now that stuff like Gotham Academy is happening, now that Marvel is kind of building towards something which who the fuck knows what it'll be, right?
It's not going to be it's not going to be a reboot, but it is a relaunch.
Well, I think it'll be a reimagining.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
definitely don't think that Marvel is going to do what DC did, which is go, everything's off the table, we're starting fresh.
They've
No,
never
I don't
done
think
that.
I think no.
DC has
I think
a
we're going to
history of
see
doing
from
that.
them on a larger scale what they've done in the past, which is a soft relaunch where they retool things a little bit. I think we'll see things like the Punisher is an Iraq and Afghanistan war veteran instead of a Vietnam veteran.
They've
Tony
kind of
Stark
already done
first
that.
built his armor in Afghanistan instead of Korea. Like,
if-
you're going to see
bring
them updating the universe. You're going to see them consolidating things a little bit, making things a little bit more consistent, making lots of little tweaks like DC did back in the 80s, but continue things going forward as they have been.
And I think that really the most exciting thing about this for me, about the whole idea that time is broken, things are not right with Marvel's timeline, is because Marvel has had this shifting timeline for so long that some characters didn't age while others did. Like Stan Lee made it a big point to make sure that Spider-Man actually aged, while many other writers were like, we can't do that. Those aren't our characters. We can't make changes to those characters. And so they wrote in a serialized nature that was like, nothing changes for Captain America, nothing changes. And so the timeline got all off kilter, where you had at one point you could have told a story where Spider-Man was 16 and Captain America was still frozen in ice, and yet somehow later Captain America's unthawed but Peter's only 30. The timeline it doesn't make sense in the way that it moved. And so one of my biggest complaints and one of my biggest things that I don't really like about Marvel, and why I have not been as big a Marvel fan as I was a DC fan, was DC was the place for legacy because Marvel had the shifting timeline. So Iron Man never got too old and had to retire. That never fucking happened and didn't look like it ever would happen. And so for me, I hope this is the end of the shifting timeline. I hope that they put their foot down and go, boom, this is where it stops. And from now on, people get old, people die, things change. We have legacy now because we're already starting to see that.
I would 100% love that.
Carol
I talked about that
Carol
in a blog
Danvers,
post.
and exactly, it's exactly what you're talking about in the blog post. Carol Danvers, and you have Kamala Khan taking over as Ms. Marvel. You have Robbie Reyes as the new Ghost Rider. There's so much legacy in those characters that could be explored. I am so excited to see a new Iron Man. And again, I think that a lot of this was brought about because in the movie universe, at some point, Robert Downey Jr. is going to get fucking tired of playing Iron Man in a movie. And I don't think that replacing him with another Tony Stark is the answer.
No,
in a superhero universe, passing the mantle on.
Replacing Tony Stark is the answer. And I think what we're seeing here is, once again, Marvel has shown time and time again that they are willing to, and at least in the last few years, that they are willing to put the time in to get the desired result.
Mm-hmm.
We see this in their cinematic universe. We see it in their comic books. What we see at DC is the exact opposite. They want immediate returns. They want instant gratification. We see it with the movies they're doing. We see it with the comic books they put out. And that's going to bite them on the ass, because the other thing that happened recently was
Warner
Warner Brothers announced their movie lineup. And it's just,
okay, so half of me is really excited. And I'll tell you what half of me...
I'm excited
I'll
for
tell
Shazam.
you the half of me that is excited. It's the half of me that's excited for Lego Batman the movie.
Yes.
The Lego Movie 2.
Yep.
The 3 Harry Potter spin-off movies. And Shazam.
Yes.
And maybe Aquaman. Maybe.
I really like Jason Momoa.
Me too.
I do like him as an actor.
And what are they going to do? Like, that's the one that I don't know what they're going to do.
Absolutely.
Because I know they're going to fuck up.
Fight Ocean Master.
Well, right. I know they're going to fuck up Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Because they don't have a goddamn clue.
Well,
I know they're going to fuck up Green Lantern, because every Green Lantern so far has been so successful. Right. And The Flash. How are you not going to make that connected to a property you already have called The Flash, in which you have now Flash fans that are fans of the Flash TV show, and you want those to be two separate things, and you want people who don't read comics and don't read the internet and don't know anything to go out and go, I saw The Flash on TV yesterday, let's go see the movie. And then they get to the movie and it's the fucking not even close to goddamn related, and then they go, I don't like this.
This is the interesting thing, is that Mark Waid recently published a blog post in which or an article in which he talks about The Flash.
I think it was actually on Playboy.com.
It may have been.
What were you guys doing on there?
Reading Mark Waid's review of The Flash, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not
Why
gonna pay,
else would you go to that website?
I'm not going to pay for a subscription to Playboy.com. Not even to look at the ladies. Fuck
That's
that
fair.
noise.
That's fair.
But Mark
Porn's free.
Waid is so far a huge fan of the flan. He's a huge custard. He's a huge
fan.
Caramel covered. He's a huge fan of the Flash TV show.
Well, and you know who's working on the Flash TV show?
Who?
Guggenheim.
Okay, so
who wrote Flash Fastest Man Alive, which was Bart Allen, who got their series canceled after 13 years or so. Anyway, there's some connection there. He's written The Flash before.
And
We're excited about
Interesting.
Mark Waid says it feels heroic. It's not bogged down by its own stupid, he says that initially what happens in the first episode, which I won't spoil for those of you that want to watch it or whatever, even though it's right in the beginning.
I haven't even watched it.
I haven't seen it yet.
It doesn't bog down the character. The character doesn't feel dark or depressed. It feels heroic. And that's impressive to me.
And I'm not going to say whether I'm going to like the show or not. And I mean, I've had a difference of opinion with Mark Waid at various times. But that man in his review, and you should go read it, doesn't spoil anything about the episode, proves once again that he fucking understands character as well as anybody in the industry.
Anybody
if
else.
Not
more.
Way fucking better.
He's the most underrated comic book writer in the world. I will
Which
go
is
out
amazing.
on a limb and say that, because nobody appreciates Mark Waid as much as they should, because that man is a fucking genius of comic books. And he does not get the respect he deserves.
Coming from anybody else, a review of a Flash TV show where they're saying this, that, and the other thing, I would be like, okay, whatever. But seriously, when we did our favorite runs episode, I talked about the modern age Flash.
Yeah.
And that is largely because of Mark Waid. Mark Waid understood Wally West. And not just that, but the modern age Flash is who he is because of Mark Waid.
Absolutely.
William Eisner Loebs did a great job in the beginning.
No, it's great.
But Mark Waid made Wally West a fucking superhero. And those issues are some of the greatest superhero comics, I think, ever written in the modern age.
I'm still a little bit astounded that you haven't picked the Flash for a long run yet. I don't understand how that happened.
Well, it's long. It's fucking 20 years. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long run. And I would want to read. I would have to go back through and read it all.
Yeah.
To figure out
what to read. Yeah.
What to read.
Well, and also we kind of talked about it a little bit on the
episode. I mean, I would love to do it.
Which is an episode I forgot that we did.
Yeah.
We're getting to the point in the show where my memory is so shitty that Kaylee asked me the other day if we had done Marvels, and I was like, no, we haven't done that one. And then after a couple minutes, I was like, wait.
No, we totally have.
I think we have. And then I had to look it up.
We have done over 100 episodes.
Yeah.
Total, including everything at this point.
Way over if I count all of Top of the Stack and all that stuff.
Yeah,
too.
no, we're way over there. But
no, nobody counts that.
No, they don't.
So, I mean, for Mark Waid to come out with a ringing endorsement that is powerful stuff for me.
But anyway,
but I agree. I think they're gonna rush it. I think that this is a lot of bluster on their part. I'm super excited about Shazam because The Rock is going to be in that, and he's going to be Black Adam. That's the only reason
I'm excited for
it. I'm
but
sorry,
again, I'm excited for Aquaman because I don't know what they're going to do.
Yeah,
the unknown is nice. But again, everything else so far, I'm sorry if you're excited for Batman Superman. And I don't know how you could be if you're a listener of the show, but maybe you are. Maybe you are. But it's not called Batman and Superman. It's called Batman versus Superman, which is a movie that should literally be about 3 seconds long, so I don't know why you would pay for a movie ticket for that. However, I'm supposing that it's going to be 2 hours of Batman walking sad through the rain, and then from space, Superman will just laser beam him.
And that's it.
And that's the whole movie. I would kind of watch that, to be honest, but I'm not sure that's worth $7 to $10 depending on what state you live in.
No. A few months ago, Kirby would, every time there was news about it, she would text me the link and then say, because it's slated to come out the same year that me and Kerbotron are getting married. And she would be like, this movie is ruining my wedding. And that's it. She would text me the link followed by, this movie is ruining my wedding. And
exactly what she would say.
Yeah. And I just really, it's going to come out and she's going to look at me and be like, this movie is ruining my wedding.
Yeah, it's, I'm not excited for that movie at all.
No,
I'm sorry if you are, but my problem with it is many problems wrapped into one, but I think that I'm not excited for that film. I'm not excited for Man of Steel 2. I'm not excited for a Ben Affleck Batman movie. I'm not excited for Wonder Woman because I know they'll fuck it up. I'm not excited for Green Lantern unless it's going to be Jon Stewart. I'm not excited for Cyborg because I don't care about Cyborg.
Wait, they're making a Cyborg movie?
Oh, really? Yeah, Cyborg comes out in 2020 because he's part of the Justice League. He's part of the New 52's Justice League. It's based on the New 52's Justice League.
Can I just say, for the record, I have 100% just tuned out on any DC news, especially the movie news. And I figure if something's actually really good, someone will tell me.
Yeah. So part of the announcements were really cool.
Yeah, and I mean,
because I loved the Lego movie.
I will wait to see what happens, but unless there is some kind of drastic tone shift, I remember thinking, okay, Wonder Woman's going to be in there. Let's see what that looks like. And it's washed out, filtered.
I said this.
Color.
I don't remember if this was on top of the stack or out of the fridge or views, but I said that how fucking frustrating must it be to be a costume designer in the modern era of
Make this look drab
film.
And boring.
No, because when you see Henry Cavill walking around the set in the Superman costume, it looks goddamn brilliant.
Yeah.
It's bright blue and the cape is bright red and everything looks cool and heroic and awesome. And the costume designers are like, I'm proud of the work we've done. And then the fucking post-production CG color correcting editor in the booth goes, I think more brown probably. And then the movie just is fucking brown. God damn it. Why is everyone
Can we make that look less bright and colorful? Can we make that look less like a celebration of heroics and
why
more
does everything look fucking brown?
Like a fucking emo kid's idea of fucking sad comic book roundup.
Comic books can be fucking unrelentingly sad and gritty without being goddamn brown.
Drab.
Go read Translucid right now. Go buy it and read that book.
Is that the one about the director that you shared with me?
No, that's the auteur.
That's right.
Translucid is
that
a book.
That book is insane.
Did you read it?
No, I sat here and read the first issue with you watching me.
It's right up on the wall.
It is up on the wall.
It is the most ridiculously colorful book I've ever read.
Translucid is this book that Dark Horse put out. Quick aside, it's about a superhero and a supervillain, and it flashes back to when one of them was a kid and the other one. I mean, it plays with a lot of ideas of who is who because they're masked heroes. You don't know who is the hero and who's the villain, and I think that's cool. But that book is so vibrantly colored, and the trippy nature of it is what makes it
nice,
really interesting. But it's super fucking dark, and everything that happens in that book is goddamn depressing as all get out. And it's not the color palette.
No,
it's the tone of the writing and how you tell a story.
You can have a sad story. You can have a depressing story. You can have a dark story that is still.
Look at anime.
Still a celebration of its matter.
Look at anime. they don't change the color palette when they're telling a sad story versus when they're telling a happy story. It still looks like cell animation. The colors are still bright and vibrant. Like, that is important. Whoever the fuck decided that sad things have to be brown, I'm going to punch you in the goddamn face.
It's first-person shooter syndrome.
Every single goddamn video game is now white guy, epic story, brown shooter, and I'm fucking tired of it.
Lots of bloom.
That's fair. No, and I agree with you. And the thing is that when I go and see, and we've said this before, right? Like, when I read a Marvel comic book, when I see a Marvel movie, I am moved by the celebration of its subject matter. I feel that fucking Winter Soldier, Captain fucking America is goddamn heroic in that movie.
And not brown.
Feels heroic, and the colors pop, and it is dynamic looking, and it fucking grabs you, and it pulls you in, and you're sitting there watching slack-jawed and glassy fucking eyed because you cannot, the spectacle is fucking tacular.
It's fun.
This is the word.
It's fun. Look at Guardians.
Go and
it's
watch
fun.
fucking, and even Man of Steel, which
And
I
colorful.
enjoyed.
And
it's
colorful.
not. At no point is that movie spectacular. At no point
Man of
is Man
Steel,
of Steel
no.
a celebration
That movie
of
is
Superman.
drab and
It's
boring.
not.
I want to get this point out kind of as a capstone for myself. Because
Mhm.
Marvel and DC go back and forth as to
Oh,
which
yeah.
one is the good one.
Absolutely.
DC, I think, was really good in the middle of the last decade, leading up towards like 2008, 2009, 2010. Like, their stuff was on fire when I really didn't like Marvel as much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that right now, Marvel is awesome and DC kind of sucks. And I pin a lot of that on Dan DiDio
absolutely.
and Bob Harris. And
Well,
as long
it's
as
the
those guys
stagnation
are
of
in
ideas.
the positions that they're in, it's not going to get better.
I agree. And
But the reason that I think Marvel is good right now is that they're doing three things.
yeah,
They're acting with planning
Mhm.
and forethought. Like, they're thinking all the shit that they're doing out months, years ahead of time.
yeah,
They're experimenting. They're doing lots of different stuff. They're trying lots of different things. They're
Mhm.
trying to get as many different people into superhero comics as they can.
absolutely.
And they're supporting their creators. And I don't just mean on the level of, hey, you have this idea, let's do that. That's cool. You keep seeing books canceled and those same creators coming back with a different book.
Oh yeah,
Because obviously Marvel looks at these people and go, we think that you've got what it takes. We like what you're doing. We haven't found the right project for you that's going to take off in a big way,
yeah.
but we're willing to keep trying things with you until we find something that does.
Yeah.
That's why we've seen Cullen Bunn
I was
bounce
just gonna say.
across like 4 or 5 different books in the last few years.
And now he finally got a book that he seems like, has made his mark
Yeah,
in Marvel with
absolutely.
Magneto. When it's like they gave him a book from the beginning and not from when the book was going to be canceled. Like, oh, surprise, the book's actually better. But that's, sometimes when you enter a new company, you have to pay dues and you have to write the book as it's being canceled
Absolutely.
for a while.
But
But look
I-
at Nick Spencer, who's getting kicked off of, or he's getting his book,
he just
Deadly
finished,
Foe.
he finished Superior Foes. of
That's what I'm
Spider-Man.
talking about. Yeah, so that book got canceled and he left, but now there's a new project with him coming out.
And
so.
was it Dennis Hopeless who was he doing Avengers Arena or was he doing Thunderbolts?
I
can't
think
remember.
That's got to be Thunderbolts because he did not do Arena.
Dennis
as far as
Hopeless
I
is
know.
another
Yeah.
one whose name I've seen on like 2 or 3 different books in the last few
And
years.
it's really clear that they're willing to try shit with these creators.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
and I think that the 3 of those are a really good recipe for putting out a lot of good books.
Well, yeah.
Maybe not everything's going to sell amazing, but they've been churning out a lot of really artistically impressive books.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it can be summed up like this. Marvel is successful right now because they are looking ahead. DC is floundering right now because they're looking behind them.
Well, they failed to look ahead, and
Yeah,
now they
well,
have
yeah.
nowhere to look but to the past to go,
But
well,
at the giant pile of crap that they've created.
that they've fucked up. And I think that, there's a lot of great debate between, Marvel or DC, Marvel or DC, Marvel or DC, but in reality, the joke I always make is it's Image, but
Yeah, well, that's
the
exactly what I was
reality
gonna
of the
say.
situation is it's Marvel and DC, and
Yeah.
we need both in comic books in the mainstream making superhero comics if we won't want either of them to be any good. Because half the reason that DC's actually trying new shit right now with Gotham Academy and Batgirl is because they're so fucking far behind Marvel that they have to try anything to catch up. And if Marvel wasn't there, and we were just stuck with DC as the comic book company, oh my God, I would not be reading comics. I'll tell you that much right now. It's the competition is healthy. And so I get called out a lot for being a DC hater. I'm not a DC hater. I'm a New 52 hater. I'll take credibility for that. But I love DC. I loved DC in the early 2000s, late 90s. Like when I was reading comics, I didn't read a lot of Marvel. I read a lot of DC. And now I'm reading a lot more Marvel because you should follow your taste.
Yeah.
If books are good at one company, you should read them. And that's it. You don't have to boycott the other company because you're reading a Marvel book.
No, absolutely not. And I agree with you. The reason I hate the New 52 is because I am a DC fan.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say something uncharacteristically optimistic. I don't think we'll be talking about DC next year at this time in the same way we're talking about it now. I think there will be changes.
I hope you're right.
Yeah.
And I'm very interested to see what happens, because what's going on right now is a lot more people are being a lot more vocal about what they will and will not stand for.
Yeah.
And a big part of those voices are women and minority that are going, there are not enough of us in comic books, both as creators and as characters, and we will no longer sit silently by while everybody goes, well, that's okay. We will not sit silently by when people say stupid shit like diversity for diversity's sake is stupid, because that's a ridiculous fucking thing to say. Period. If you've ever said that, then you need to go into the bathroom and go, I am a bad person for ever having thought that, and I will never think that again.
Why are they doing it in the bathroom?
Because the mirror is there.
Right, you skipped a step.
I'm sorry, I skipped a step. So look into the mirror.
Look into an empty toilet bowl and
seriously.
say to yourself, toilet, you and I are the same.
Think about what you fucking look into the toilet bowl, because I guarantee if you are any kind of good person, you're going to vomit as soon as you remember the fact that you said that at any time. No, seriously, diversity is good. Representation is good. Voice is good.
We see it all the time, and I'm so excited that they're, every year I get excited when kids dress up as characters that they never heard of before.
Yes.
Well, no one knows who fucking Star-Lord is, and yet this year there are Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon costumes, and that's so cool for characters that have been around since for forever, since before I was alive in the 70s and all that. To finally get the recognition that kids are going to dress up as them is awesome. But even better is when a kid looks at the TV screen and says, "Hey, Mom, there's someone who looks like me."
Yes.
And that's a huge deal.
Yes.
And to say, hey, there's someone that looks like me, and they're not a fucking criminal in this show. They get to be the goddamn superhero, or they're not like the, any stereotype, they get to be the protagonist of something. That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you hear it time and time again. The actors coming up in the business said, I didn't think I could be an actor until I saw person X, person Y, person Z. And I knew I could be an actor because they were a woman, they were black, they were Asian, they were, and they were, from another country. And it was like, it opened their eyes to the world of possibility. And that's why representation is important.
Well, we just recently had the first woman ever to win the Fields Medal, which is pretty much the Nobel Prize in mathematics, right? That is going to be
overdue, I'd say.
It is fucking overdue, because women have been involved in mathematics for
maybe 10 years.
Several hundred years, all right? And they
at least 10 years.
At least 10 years. At least try a couple of
They've
hundred.
They've definitely been involved for 10 years or more.
Places like Oxford and Cambridge, they had rooms full of women that did calculations for professors and were not allowed to take the classes that those professors taught.
Yeah.
Right? It's time. It's fucking time, all right? I'm sorry if it scares you. I'm sorry if you think the girls are coming into your clubhouse and stealing your comic books. But, it's time to let... And I know, I'm, talking to an audience that largely agrees with me.
Well, that's the part of... Not to get into what I was fucking saying we weren't going to talk about, but that's the part about the whole Gamergate scandal that I don't understand, is it's like, hey, more people are going to join your favorite hobby. Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so excited to have more people in my hobby. Great, me too. That's the fucking right response. If your response is, no, this shit is mine and you can't have any, kill yourself. I'm sorry. Just fuck you. Really?
One of the best moments for me
Absolutely.
on this podcast, we just recently got an email from a reader who basically said, I decided to get into comics I was like, hey, the New 52 is a thing, and all of these things have new number ones. I'll read this. This will be me getting into comics. And he fucking hated it.
Yeah.
And he was going to, like, get out of comics again.
Mm-hmm.
And he found out about our show, and he listened to it, and he's like, you guys turned me on to the good comics. And I actually found comics that I liked, and now I like comics, and I read them. And he said something like, my sister and my girlfriend both thought comics were for losers, and now they both read Saga and think it's great.
Yes.
And I think that
it's like, that's incredibly gratifying, because we got somebody who would have felt rejected by the comic book community.
Yes.
But we helped them find the joy in comic books.
And it's literally, very literally, the reason that I started podcasting. The reason I started this show was because when I worked at a comic book store and someone came in and said, I don't think I like the New 52, are there other books for me? I could point them to other books. But there are so many people out there in the world that don't have good comic book stores to go to. They don't have a good community of comic book, fans to converse with. And the internet is a fucking dangerous place to go, hi, I've never read a comic book before, to not get yelled at for being a noob or a poser.
Well, I just pitched Nimona on on episode 88. And the reason that I got into that webcomic was because I saw a journal comic posted by the author, Noelle Stevenson, where she basically said, I'm a comic book professional, and I don't go into comic book stores because I'm not welcome there.
Absolutely.
And that is, that is a bullshit thing.
I think I commented on that on her page, but like that's the whole reason, right? That's the whole reason I started the show, was because I wanted to extend the idea of, hey, comics are for everyone. Comics are not a genre. They're a medium. Let's talk about what else is out there. And maybe one of those books, maybe if one person finds one book that they like, I consider this a success. And that's why those emails are so incredibly gratifying. And that's literally the reason why I do the show.
Well, yeah.
And so thank you so much for writing in. I know I responded personally in the email, but I love hearing that kind of stuff. It makes me so happy when people listen and enjoy this shit. And I always say that I don't fucking care who listens, and that I would do this if 8 people listened, and I probably would. But I do really love all of the positive feedback we've been getting. Thank you so much.
Listen to the show.
At least 8 people.
Or more.
Thank you so much for our fan art that we got recently.
Yeah,
very
Ali
beautiful.
Joffrey.
Yes.
Fucking thank you. Those prints are incredible.
Fucking awesome. I'm going to put that up in my living room so that not only I can look at it all day, but everybody that comes over to my apartment will see it.
It's going up in the studio. Thank you to Brandon Hill, who emails me all the time and tells me that he likes or dislikes things about the show and that he wants free comics from me. That's fine. And you can do that.
Yeah,
and I love it. And I just thank you to everyone that's been supportive. Thank you to all the guys that were disappointed when I put Top of the Stack on hiatus, because that made me feel bad and made me want to make more content sooner.
You should.
I should feel bad. I know.
I think at the end of the day, in geekdom and in comic books and gaming and all these very specific kingdoms, right? That geekdom, that the kingdom of geekdom is made up out of.
These fan.
Why you gotta be a kingdom, Joe?
It could be a queendom, a persondom, whatever. Don't sidetrack me. God damn it. I think at the end of the day, we are people that love comic books.
Yeah.
And we are lucky enough to have a group of people that we can get together with every week and talk about comic books. But I think we are also people that see gatekeeping and see a lot of hate and a lot of really just ridiculous assumptions. And I think we all stand against that. And I think that while I think the reason this show is gratifying and getting an email like that is gratifying is because I get to come and talk with my good friends about comic books every week, and also tell the people that I mean, gate an audience of people that think like I do, and the people, and maybe change a few minds, or maybe bring up something that somebody hasn't thought of.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what God damn it, that's like the 4th time I've hit your fucking
It's okay,
microphone.
they haven't heard any of those because I haven't been talking during it.
Yeah, I know, right? That's good. You planned it that way.
I did.
At the end of the day, I totally lost my train of thought. No, what I was gonna say is
I have no idea.
Positive affirmation of life.
Well, it is, because it's incredibly difficult to be told that something you love could be hurtful to somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think there is a reaction to hearing that when you are a person that's told, hey, this scene in this comic book is really perpetuates an offensive stereotype of women or offensive stereotype of this minority or that minority or
and
whatever.
if it's a comic book you love, that's hard to hear.
It's really hard to, because it's almost impossible to hear that and not immediately go, I'm a bad person for liking X or bad person for liking
even,
Y.
Like, you like it. So therefore, them telling you that it's bad means that you like a bad thing.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
every time I tell everyone in the world that Ocarina of Time is a bad game, people get mad at me because they love that game.
We're not going down that
And
road.
I don't
right
get
now.
mad at you. You're just wrong.
And that's fine. I don't care. But the point is, like, you're going to get mad if someone criticizes.
You
and
absolutely are.
It's a reaction, and it's okay to have that reaction. What's wrong is taking that reaction to mean that we can't discuss it, and that's wrong. Like, you can always discuss. There's no such thing as a perfect work. There's no such thing as a perfect game. There's no such thing as a perfect comic. There's always something we can talk about.
Absolutely.
Whether you agree or not, that's fine, but the discussion is going to happen regardless of if you're angry or not. And so why not just not be angry? It's kind of, I mean, we're angry all the time, but it is actually more fun to not be angry.
I mean, but and the thing is that I think at the end of the day, you can be angry at that.
Why
you
can't
can
it be at the beginning of the day? Maybe you stayed up late.
at the
Yeah.
end.
Maybe you got up
anyways,
early to get angry.
When after this episode,
I know
I'm
I
gonna
did.
beat these two to death with the mic stand. But seriously, that anger is okay as
Yeah.
long as you can move past it and
Oh, yeah.
see what somebody else is talking about, right?
It's
It
okay
is-
to feel things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
generally.
okay to like problematic things as long as we can have a conversation about it. And more, that's how I think about it.
Yeah.
This is a conversation, and there are people that are having the conversation. There are people that are brought into the conversation, maybe a little bit stiffly or maybe a little bit unwillingly.
Mhm.
But the more of the conversation they hear, the more they realize that it's an important conversation that everybody needs to be a part of. And then there are the people sticking their fingers in their ears going, nah, 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 right? And these are the people that are leveling threats of death and rape and think it's funny to troll women that call
And
out
leaked-
blatant sexism or
leaked photographs
leaked-
and all kinds
right,
of
all
bullshit.
this bullshit, right?
Ugh.
And at the end of the day, their days are numbered, right?
No, it's true.
Because the
And that's
voices of the people, and that's why I say
That's why they're so angry.
that is why they're angry, because they're at the end of the day, they're scared.
Eh.
They're scared of losing this thing that has meant a lot to them.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that, and the irony in that development, is that by doing that, by actively trying to keep people out of this thing, they are stagnating the thing they claim to
No,
love.
and I agree.
They are trying to strangle it off at the source. And that is why I laugh at them.
Well, and
Because
and it's not that I don't understand people that are having a hard time with this, because like many of us who grew up on the fringes of what was cool and we're never, the coolest kid in class or
Yeah.
whatever, like we liked the shit that we liked, and because we liked it, people hated us.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see other people suddenly now pick up the thing that you loved and were ridiculed for life,
absolutely.
and they don't get any ridicule.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, that's not fair. That's not fair. I worked so hard to love this thing, and now someone else gets to love it, and they
suffer.
don't have to suffer.
Or
And
this
you're
thing
right.
was my refuge from
Right.
those people
Yeah.
who tormented me.
And you're right, it's not fair. But the reaction isn't that they should get treated the way you did. It's that you should have never been treated that way in
Well,
the first
and-
place, because you're allowed to love what you love, and no one should judge you for that.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So when someone comes up to you and says, hi, I've just started to get into comic books and I know you like comics, your first reaction should not be to quiz them about what Green Lantern it was, the third Green Lantern, because they're wearing a Green Lantern shirt and you
No,
don't think they deserve to wear it.
absolutely.
Your reaction should be to give them a great big old hug and be like, what comic books do you
Welcome
love?
to the
With
fold.
consent.
And get excited that other people like
Because
the shit that you like. That's
your,
cool.
Your whole life is not your childhood. I hate to tell you this, but it's not. And like,
What?
as I was ostracized, right? Like as a kid, and I had a lot of that anger as an adult, but really at the end of the day, what we share, this love of comic books, it's a beautiful thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like, you need to be able to move past that part of you that's like, no, this is my thing and my thing only.
Yeah.
Because you're strangling it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, take the opportunity to be the person you want to be rather than the person that you think you should be, right?
Yeah.
And like,
it's
I heard a
honestly
story at one point.
Oh yeah,
It was an adult talking to a small child that they had just met, and the child had like a My Little Pony shirt on or something like that. It was a little girl, and she was like, "Oh, you like My Little Pony? I like My Little Pony too." And she's like, "Oh, that's great." And the woman said, "Like, well, who's your favorite pony?" And the girl said, like, "I don't know, Pinkie Pie or something." And the woman was like, "Oh, that's my favorite one too." And the little girl goes, "No, that's my favorite.
Yeah.
You can't like that character. That's my thing that I like."
Right.
And ultimately, like, that reaction, like, you're not allowed to have my special thing. Like, it's an immature reaction.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And
at the end of that story is the woman kicked the kid and then ran away. Because...
No, the woman was like, "No, fuck you, little kid. She's my favorite pony. I'm going to beat the shit out of you
because
you don't
I'm
like
way
her anymore
bigger
because
than
it's
you."
mine."
And then
because that's totally what an
Pinkie Pie
adult human
doll.
being does.
Why are we laughing?
I don't know. That's horrible.
We're horrible for laughing at this.
Yeah, I think Joe's right. You know, like if you try to just hold on to something and not let it change, you're strangling it. You're killing it. It's essentially like the wife wants to divorce you, so you lock her in a basement forever. Like she's not gonna get any better.
She is never going to love you again.
That's the worst reaction you could possibly have.
Yeah.
Like if you gotta let some stuff breathe. You gotta let it grow. Gotta let it change. Because change it's gonna happen regardless if you want it to or not. And so you can either enjoy the change or you can just get angry.
Yeah, and all the incredible comics that we've seen in the last 10, 15 years, things like Transmetropolitan, things like Invincible, things like all these great little books, things like The Private Eye, right? Like,
oh yeah,
just shit like that. That would not be possible without people to read those comic books.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The more people reading comic books it's better for the industry because there's more market. There'll be more people wanting more things, which will get more creators in. And the more creators to have, the more people reading it, the more we're influencing a new generation of creators that are going to come up with even fucking cooler shit.
Yeah.
Look at what Brandon Graham did with fucking Prophet.
Yeah.
Right? Like, look at what Matt Fraction has done with Iron Fist and fucking Hawkeye and shit. Like, it's clear that he fucking cared about those characters, you know?
Well, I think that the Immortal Bard said it best, and I'm going to be paraphrasing here because I don't remember the exact quote. I said, "Yep, what a concept. I could use a little fuel myself, and we could all use a little change."
Yeah.
Oh, I listen to that every day in my fucking work van with my crew, and they fucking love it.
Yeah.
It's a jazzy tune.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. It really gets you fired up for the day.
But we say it all the time. We're living in a golden age of comics right now. So go out, read some books, and enjoy it.
Yeah. Go out and read some comic books right now.
And thanks for listening, everybody. We will catch you back on a more regular episode next week.
Yeah.
At some point.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this presentation of View from the Gutters. View from the Gutters is featured on theouthousers.com and the Comics Podcast Network. Keep up to date with everything that we're doing on our website at viewfromthegutters.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a review on iTunes, as it does help new listeners find our show. Thanks for listening, everybody. And as always, keep reading.